Tumba, KTN News.
Right now, taxi hailing application Bolt has today addressed the issues surrounding the delays of its license by the National Transport and Safety Authority (NTSA). The company notes that despite reports on cancellation of its license, that was not the case, stating that the duration taken for the license to be approved is no different to last year. Now, at the same time, the company has committed to invest 100 million in electric vehicles as part of diversifying its operation. Jimmy Mbogo now joins us with more. Good afternoon, Jimmy.
Well, thank you very much, Nakundi, and a very good afternoon to you. Yes, as you rightfully said, we're following up a conversation at Bolt, and particularly to do with the licensing process of why it took so long. We understand it took about a full month for them to get that renewal ready. And I will be speaking to the country manager, that is Linda Ngige. Linda, thank you so much for making time to speak to KTN. So first things first, and I know you were part of that process. What took so long? What are some of the things that NTSA wanted you guys to address?
Right, and I think that's a good question. And maybe I would take a step back and say that if we compare it with last year, it actually took the same amount of time, because typically what the regulator does is they inform us, hey, it's time to get a license like it was last year, or renew your license as it happened this year. And then they tell us, you know what, this is a checklist. These are the things that we think are outstanding that you need to work on so that we can continue with this license renewal process. And so this is part of our normal process, and this is how we engage with the regulator. And it's typically what the regulator does, not only with us as Bolt, but with other players in the industry. If there's any issues or any processes that they feel need to be strengthened or they need a bit more clarification on, then they write and they say, please check on process 1, 2, 3, and please look at this issue, that issue, the other issue, so that we can continue with the license renewal process.
And one of the noise that we keep hearing is around driver compensation. Maybe talk us through that arrangement that you have with them, and why do we keep on hearing these strikes and these lamentations and issues, complaints from the drivers?
Okay, and the first thing I would want to say is at Bolt, the net earnings of the drivers is what keeps us awake at night, because it's a business imperative. If our driver partners are not making sufficient money, then they will not want to offer services on our platform. If they do not offer services on our platform, we can't be here. And so for us, it's a business imperative that at the end of the day, how much money is a driver taking home? We spend so many hours thinking about this. But that said, probably two things, right? One is that we did increase pricing because we're very cognizant of the macroeconomic environment we're in, and fuel prices, for instance, have been going up over this year. They've gone up significantly, and so we made adjustments to cater for that. And then secondly, more broadly, we've been in a lot of conversations with both the ministry and NTSA and our driver partners, because the crux of this issue is a pricing structure in the industry right now.
There seems to be a lot of moving pieces in your industry, and particularly in as far as the regulatory and policy framework goes, and I just want to get it from you. What is the net effect of that to the business?
If, right now, as the regulation stated, then we need to cap any commission that we take on trips at 18%. And while I always like to say, and we believe as a business, that these regulations are really good, right? But they do need a bit of tweaking, because the nature of our businesses is that if we are very restrictive in that manner, it might not be sustainable for all the businesses across board. And we've also not looked at other aspects, for example, taxation. So is taxation part of the 18%? Is it not part of the 18%? We've not looked at platform maintenance. Is it part of the 18%? Is it not part of the 18%? And so 18% might not necessarily be a long-term sustainable measure for businesses, and that's why we need to have this conversation and see, do we need to adjust it? Do we need to think through, is it a higher cap that we need? Is it a different mechanism altogether that we need? Okay. Yes. All
right, now just to quote something that you said during your presentation is, we are staying as Bolt. Yes. There was an offer on the table. Why not consider it?
As I said during our presentation, it was very flattering to receive a letter from an industry player, because for us it means that they recognize that there's great work happening here at Bolt. But we, as Bolt, want to operate as Bolt because we have a plan. We have a big vision for 2024. We're bringing significant investments into this country. We're starting with 100 million Kenya shillings on the EV bike space, and there'll be even more coming after that. And so while it's flattering that other people are interested, we have a game plan, and we want to be here to stay, and we want to be active players and contributors to this economy and building employment opportunities. So thank you, but no thank you. Bolt Kenya remains Bolt Kenya.
Let's talk about the question of, and particularly this is something that customers have been complaining, the safety of the customers, the conduct of your drivers. This has made headlines recently. What are you doing to address some of these issues, and what are some of the disciplinary actions that have been taken?
Right. So one of the things that I would want to reiterate here is that we at Bolt have a zero tolerance policy to this kind of, indecent behavior. And what that means is that as soon as it happens, then you're off the platform, so long as there's evidence to show that actually this happened. And we also go the extra step. We engage the regulators, we engage the police, and like in this particular case, we forwarded the names and the details of this individual to NTSA because we believe that this individual should not necessarily leave us and go to another platform. Because for us, it's also about making this industry a viable industry for everyone. It's about making this industry that every passenger feels safe on every platform. Because if we all win like that, then we keep growing and we keep moving.
All right, lastly, can you talk revenue? It's 2023 already is done. So what are your projections for 2024? Are we looking at more drivers on the road? You've talked about the investment million in EV. And so let's talk revenue, the business side of it.
Yes.
Despite the noise, of course, at the end of the day, you have to run a profitable business. Yes. So what are your projections going as we close the year, going into next year?
Yes, and that's the exciting part.
All right, thank you very much. Quite an optimistic note to end. And Nyakundi, there you have it, of course, 100 million investment in this particular quarter, just looking at AV, that is electric vehicles.
All right, Jimmy Mbogo right there. Thank you so much for that conversation. Now we are going to go for a short break, but when we come back, remember we are going to be talking to Emmanuel Okogbenin, who is the Director of Programs and Commercialization, AATF. We're going to talk about Agri-Tech and also ACAT conference. Don't go too far.